Sound check. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday, guys. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Welcome to tonight's live broadcast, live question and answer. And I'm going to be going over some of the biggest questions that people asked me during the previous week. So I'm going to let you know what the questions are so that you guys can get a good idea of what I'm going to be talking about. So, do I need to be on a multivitamin if I'm on a GLP-1 agonist medication? I'll explain to you what that is. Dr. Nate, where on earth is my inflammation coming from? Oh, please help me with my thyroid. How can I improve my immune system? And how do I improve my adrenal health? So I'm going to be answering those questions as we go through everything. So right now, if you are watching live, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Right now, we're broadcasting live on Facebook at Dr. Nathan Thompson, Facebook at The Wellness Way Yorkville, also on YouTube at Dr. Nathan Thompson, and also on the Rumble platform. Although if you say hello, I can't see what's going on the Rumble platform, but it's good to see you guys. So as I'm going live, every Monday, I always want to give you guys content that you can kind of grab your teeth into, and something that's going to help improve your life. And these are some of the topics I'm going to be going over today, especially. Now, I am going live a little bit later. I went a little bit later with patience. However, make sure that you watch this all the way through. Or if you're watching replay, let me know that you're watching on replay. Okay. So I'm going to be going over these topics specifically, answering these a little bit in a little bit more detail. Okay. So if you are from the Chicagoland area, guys, and you want to work with the Wellness Way approach, me specifically, I would be absolutely honored. But right now, our next in-person event to get registered as a patient is going to be on Tuesday, June 10th at 6 o'clock p.m. This is an in-person event. So we will be talking about inflammation. And guys, one of the biggest things, I always tell people is you really do have to figure out where the inflammatory triggers are actually coming from. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. But inflammation has been tied to nearly every single chronic disease. And it causes you to age faster as well. So if you want to feel better, you want to look better, and you want to just be better in general, make sure that you get to the inflammation event. And I'll be answering some of the biggest questions is why people have problems losing weight. issues with cancer, infertility, thyroid disease. In fact, I'll be talking a little bit about that tonight. Chronic arthritis, type 2 diabetes, autoimmunity. And yes, this even affects your hormones. The biggest thing I want to tell you about hormones is hormones are messengers. And so hormones start to go bad if there's a lot of inflammatory issues that are going on. It's just an adaptation that the body takes place. And that's why, I say you don't want to be dumping indiscriminately hormones into your system without understanding what's going on in your body. And so if you're from the Chicagoland area, please make sure that you just go on all our socials. You see our Linktree profile. You will click on that. That will actually pull up a bunch of different options. And in fact, the first one that you will see is the inflammation event. That will take you to our Eventbrite page. And if you go to at the Eventbrite page, you can click on that and you can register to be at that event on, I think, June 10th, which is a Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, at 6:00 p.m. It'll take you about 30 seconds to register for that. The only thing that we ask you to do is if you are, in fact, registering for it, please make sure you show up because my staff will reach out to you and just to confirm your attendance at that event. So this is how you start working with me in person and start getting to the bottom of why you might not just be feeling very good too. So go ahead and register on that link, and it's free to attend that event. We have a special gift for you when you attend that event too. So let's go over some of the biggest questions that we got last week. Okay. And so I kind of gave you a preview of what I'm going to be talking about. However, I wanted to say this because I made a video on this on social media and you see the gentleman, hi, Dr. Terry. He's probably watching right now because he hates me. He also hates the Wellness Way approach. Anything that's not medicine, he thinks is absolute malarkey. And in fact, one of the things that's so interesting about him is if you look at most doctors say, they said this for years, you don't be on a multivitamin. Don't be on a multivitamin. In fact, they would even say that a multivitamin was damaging to your body. Well, I would actually partially agree with that if you are getting a very bad quality or see how it was manufactured multivitamin. But you look at most doctors and they say that, and all of a sudden, Dr. Terry is talking about if you're on a GLP-1 agonist, you need to be on a multivitamin without doing any kind of test, without actually knowing what to do, without actually going over the quality or the sourcing of the multivitamin. The reason why he started to promote it was actually because he could make a profit from it. So, and he said that you need to be on a special GLP-1 agonist multivitamin, as if there's some kind of multivitamin that you can specifically make for people who are on a GLP-1 agonist. Now, you may not know what a GLP-1 agonist is, but this is the new medication that's so hot to trot, for people using it as weight loss. And I've talked about this a lot in the past of what it actually does. And if you start to see of what it's doing to cause people to decrease their appetite, not want to eat as much, well, you can run into a lot of issues when it comes to that. But he's never, ever promoted any kind of multivitamin until he can actually make some kind of profit from it. And just so you know, this is an this is an AI picture. This is not really him, as well, although it might as well be because it's just as preposterous, some of this health advice that he gives. So I'm on a GLP-1 agonist. This would be like Mounjaro, some of these type 2 diabetes medications that they're now using this as some kind of weight loss miracle. And so, people started reaching out to me and they're like, do I need to be on some kind of multivitamin if I'm taking this drug? Okay. Well, here's one of the first things that I want to tell you is that there is no such thing as a special multivitamin for people that are on a GLP-1 agonist. Wegovy, Mounjaro, some of these medications that people say, oh, I can't lose weight, but I go on these medications now, of course I can lose weight. And you know why? The reason why you lose weight, because it primarily causes gastroparesis, which is delayed gastric emptying. So it delays the emptying of your stomach. And I want you to think about that. If you are delaying the emptying of your stomach, well, then your stomach's going to stay fuller longer. It's going to stay stretched fuller. It's going to actually start to cause the hunger signals to be suppressed within your body. So it's delaying gastric emptying. This is probably not a very good idea because a lot of people do have problems with low stomach acid, which can, in fact, by itself cause delayed stomach acid or delayed gastric emptying. And then on top of that, if that's consistently happening, it's going to slow down the speed of how your gastrointestinal system is working. And the other thing that it's going to be doing too is it's going to be slowing down the release of bile, which is why you can run into some gallbladder issues when you're doing that. This is why this can cause so many different issues. But I understand the reason why Dr. Terry wants to sell this is because when you go on a GLP-1 agonist, and if you're losing weight, the biggest thing I tell people is congratulations, you're not eating as much. You literally aren't eating as much. But if that is happening, as you decrease how much you are eating, then the problem is if you're eating less, then you may already have the some of the holes that you had with your nutrition are probably exacerbated or made even worse. But one of the things you got to consider is that it's delaying gastric emptying, which is also going to decrease the gallbladder's release of bile, which can in fact cause some issues with the absorption of fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. I mean, so it can cause all kinds of issues that are going on. But this is why they even say infection. If you needed to be on that medication, chances are there's probably some kind of infection that you are running within the gastrointestinal system. And in addition to that, you probably do need a lot of liver and gallbladder support, only because of what that medication do and how it's starting to change your physiology. But the biggest thing I want to tell people is this: there's no such thing as a special multivitamin, and it's advertised as a special GLP-1 agonist multivitamin, and there's really no such thing, guys. There's really no such thing. It's just good marketing when you say that, okay? Now, chances are, this is what I tell people when I'm meeting with them, in a one-on-one consult. But I'm going to ask you this, because chances are you probably have a lot of holes in your nutrition if you're just not getting this. And this is why, depending on, how much you weigh, this is why, on a GLP-1 agonist, they talk about the loss of muscle mass. Well, it's because it just makes it a lot harder for you to be able to break down your proteins. But are you getting between 100 and 250 grams of protein per day prior to even going on a GLP-1 agonist? And chances are most people don't get enough protein. However, if you were to try to get 250 grams of protein on GLP-1 agonist, it probably would make you vomit and have a lot of stomach upset too. But this is if you are not on it, and the 100 to 250 grams is going to be dependent on your muscle mass. It's going to be dependent on your weight, which is going to be very specific on how much muscle mass that you have. How about this one? Are you getting 4,000 milligrams of potassium per day? Almost no one gets 4,000 milligrams of potassium per day. And that's just basically the RDA of how much potassium you need to be taking in. And almost nobody gets enough potassium in their diet. And this is one of the reasons why. If you're potassium deficient, getting lots of salt, this is why you see your blood pressure actually start to go up. This is one of the reasons why my blood pressure always ran high when I was younger. I wasn't fat. I wasn't out of shape. I didn't have type 2 diabetes. I didn't have any of those things, but I was also very severely potassium deficient. And no one ever actually told me why that was. Are you getting 6 to 7 ounces of liver per week? 6 to 7 ounces of liver per week. And the reason why I say that is liver is nature's multivitamin. If you're getting liver, eating liver, in fact, most people don't want to eat liver. So I tell them to take it in a desiccated source in a pill form, because liver has some of the highest amount of vitamin A. Liver is going to be high in selenium. It's going to be high in zinc. It's going to be high in CoQ10. It's going to be high in a lot of things, microminerals that I know that most people aren't getting from their diet as well. Liver is, in fact, nature's multivitamin. Are you getting a teaspoon of salt per day? So I tell people, get a teaspoon of salt. So heavily salt your food with, if you're getting enough potassium, get some sea salt and put it on your food. Try to get a teaspoon of it per day. This is what just boggles my mind, is when doctors say you need to limit your salt. And I'm like, well, you may need to limit the amount of processed food that you're getting that has a lot of added salt in it. But the other thing too is that most people aren't counteracting that by getting enough potassium. And that's where people start to run into some problems. Are you getting 5 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D per day? And this is dependent on how big you are, as well. And I get about 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. Last time I checked my vitamin D, I was sitting at around 90 or so. And that's where I consistently sit. And are you also getting 300 to 600% of your RDA of iodine per day? Well, Dr. Nate, why are you talking about getting more of your RDA? Because 100% of your RDA is just to avoid having a goiter. But there has actually been a lot of research of saying how people are chronically iodine deficient, specifically men. And I've done a video on iodine and breast health and how important it is in order to have healthy breast tissue And it requires a lot more iodine than just getting 100% of your RDA or just getting some iodized salt. Most people should be getting adequate amounts of seafood. In fact, for me, I hate seafood. I absolutely hate it. I just refuse to eat it. So I will get about 400 to 500% of my RDA of iodine. I just take some iodine drops, literally one drop, 1 to 2 drops of that per day will take care of my iodine needs. So you need to be getting adequate iodine. So look at all of these different things that people need just with their basic nutrition. And the problem is now they add in a GLP-1 agonist that tells them to be eating less so they get less nourishment. They're overfed, they're getting less nourishment, and then they can make these problems actually worse, okay? Now, if you are on a GLP-1 agonist, one of the things I would tell you to do is please, please, please get a stool test, because a stool test is one of the best tests, is a functional stool test. It'll help you to see how well how much stomach acid you're releasing. It'll tell you if you're releasing enough pancreatic enzymes, if you're getting enough bile acid release, if you're running any kind of infection, if you're running any kind of parasite, if you're low in short chain fatty acid, what the microbiome looks like. So there's all these different things that are going on. But chances are, once you go on a GLP-1 agonist, the fact that you needed to be on one probably means you were doing some very damaging things to the gastrointestinal system. And then going on that medication is something that could actually just make it worse. Okay. Here's the next question I want to go over. Where is my inflammation coming from? And I know that people talk about this all the time. You go on social media and they talk about inflammatory foods. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. Foods in and of themselves aren't really inflammatory. And they say, well, sugar is inflammatory. I'm like, sugar is not really inflammatory. Although if you overconsume sugar and it leads to an elevation of your blood sugars, then yeah, that in and of itself, elevated blood sugars can be inflammatory just because it damages your soft tissues. So, but a lot of times people talk about inflammation, but they have no idea where on fact it's actually coming from. And I talk about this a lot at the inflammation event, but I'm going to tell you this is where you need to start considering where your inflammation is coming from. The first thing is gastrointestinal hyperpermeability, also kind of known as a leaky gut. But if your gastrointestinal system, your small intestine is hyperpermeable, then one of the things that it's going to do is it's going to be taking in a lot of undigested proteins, which then can cause a lot of immune reactions to certain types of foods. That in and of itself can cause an immune system reaction. And yes, it's going to cause inflammation. You got to understand, though, what inflammation is and what it isn't. Inflammation is a response by your immune system. So it's an immune system response. And if you look at the immune system, what is the immune system responding to? It's responding to foreign proteins, toxins. It's responding to a bacteria, a virus, a food. It's responding to toxins. So it's responding to all of those different things. So how leaky is your gut? That's a huge consideration, because when we look at people with autoimmunity, many times we will see just a massive gastrointestinal hyperpermeability, also known as a leaky gut. And I've had some people with Crohn's disease, and man, they have 35 different food allergies, which means that they are leaking a lot of proteins through the gastrointestinal system. That's causing an immune system response, because the immune system looks at that protein and says, you know what? You don't belong here. I'm going to have to get rid of you. And then inflammation is one of the things that ensues. The other thing of where your inflammation can be coming from is if you are running infection. So think of this. If you ever had the flu, man, your joints hurt, you have a headache, you feel tired, you feel lethargic, and this is the response of the immune system. And in fact, a lot of times the immune system will secrete certain messengers that will make you feel that way. So are you running infection? So if you're running infection, then you're just not going to feel very hot. And this is why when you do have infection, why your joints can hurt and things like that. The other thing that you got to consider too is am I running elevated blood sugars? This is so prevalent in so many people, because I love when people are like, oh, I need to get my knee done. I need to get my hips replaced. And I'm like, the people who aren't getting their knees done or their hips replaced or something like that, these are the people who actually aren't running elevated blood sugars. Well, like, oh, I'm obese. I'm like, yeah, but you are obese. Yep. And fat cells in and of themselves can be very inflammatory, but also you need to be checking your blood sugars, because when your blood sugars are running elevated, is that it will cause damage to the connective tissue inside the body. It's called advanced glycation end stages. And so it will cause damage to those structures. And then once those structures get damaged, which might be your joint capsules, which might be your endothelial lining, your blood vessel linings, it may be, just like I said, the joints. But this is why when people are running elevated blood sugars, why everything feels very, very inflamed. So this is why you got to get your blood sugar under control, but also physical stress. This is why the spine and the nerve system is so important, because if you're not lining yourself up with gravity and then you just start pounding away while you're not lining up with gravity, well, then it's just going to cause tissue damage in which the immune system has to try to go ahead and clean that up. Another thing too with chronic inflammation is you have to look at mold mycotoxicity, because this in and of itself will make you very inflamed systemically. And so that's why there's a lot of different things that you have to consider, like where on earth is my inflammation coming from? And those are just some of the things that you have to consider. But I will actually tell you this: you need to be working with a Wellness Way doctor, because the Wellness Way doctors are experts as far as figuring out what the inflammatory triggers are. I probably get 3 or 4 messages on social media of people asking me for advice, and my advice is never going to be the same, guys. Rather than reach out to me with all these kind of questions, please make sure that you are working with a Wellness Way doctor. And there are probably some in your area. There's some that will work with you remotely, but work with the Wellness Way doctor, and they will know the approach of exactly what to do in order to consider some of these things. Do I have a leaky gut? Am I running a chronic infection? Yes, that infection might be within the gastrointestinal system. Do I have elevated blood sugars? Do I have a lot of physical stress on my body? Do I have mold mycotoxicity? All those things can cause all kinds of issues when it comes to chronic, unrelenting, unresolved inflammation. But those are some of the areas in which it's actually coming from. And this is why it's so important to make sure that you're working with a Wellness Way doctor. And this is why, if you're watching right now and you're from the Chicagoland area, please make sure that you get to our next inflammation event. Register for it, guys, right now, Tuesday, June 10th at 6 o'clock p.m. This is your ticket into a better life. I will tell you this, okay? So make sure that you get registered for it. I know that we already have probably 10 people registered for it, but make sure you register before we run out of room, because we only have enough room for a certain number of people, and I want to make sure that you're not putting it off. Please don't put it off any longer than what you need to, okay? All right, here's the next one. Doc, I need help with my thyroid. Oh, I need help with my thyroid. Meaning I went, to the doctor, and they saw that my TSH was really, really high. And then they put me on some kind of like synthetic thyroid, like Synthroid or levothyroxine or something like that, just based off of one lab marker. Now, I will actually tell you this, because I could talk about this for 2 or 3 hours in regards to your thyroid. But TSH, that is not even a thyroid hormone. That's a brain hormone. And your levels of TSH go up and down depending on certain times of the day. So I've had people have elevated TSH, normal thyroid. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a thyroid issue, okay? Now, a lot of times people with a thyroid issue, they want to blame all of their health problems on a thyroid issue, and I don't see that that's the case. There's a reason why your thyroid may be suffering, and you have to get to the deeper reasons why your thyroid is suffering. It's not just a thyroid issue in and of itself. But if you talk specifically about your thyroid, here's what you got to consider. The first thing is do I have a production issue? Do I have an issue producing thyroid hormone? And that's why you can't just look at TSH. You have to look at free and total T3 and T4. And in fact, T4 is really what the thyroid is producing. And T3 is how the body converts it, which a lot of the conversion is happening within the gastrointestinal system, converted in the kidneys, it's converted within the liver. And in fact, you have to look at both of those numbers to see, because sometimes your production is normal, but you can't convert it. Sometimes the doctor gives you levothyroxine, but you have a fatty liver. And so you're not converting it into the active form, which is T3, which is what your cells are actually using, which is why you may have adequate T4 levels, normal TSH levels, and you still feel like garbage, because the cells aren't even able to use T3 in order to be able to set the cell's metabolism. The other thing that you have to consider too is am I getting my thyroid destroyed by the immune system? And this is what doctors miss all the time, because this is called an autoimmune reaction, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and this is due to immune system destruction. No, the immune system is not attacking your thyroid, because usually if the immune system is going in, It's trying to clean out damaged cells to your thyroid. They might be virally infected. You may not have enough antioxidant support. This is why selenium can be so important, because it's just causing, damage to the cells. The cells are getting sick, and the immune system is actually just trying to clean it up. It may be an interference issue, and in which case, there's so many things that are interfering with normal thyroid function. But I will tell you this, sometimes you can have a pituitary tumor and that's in that case, you look at your thyroid labs and nothing looks normal on that. But I will tell you this, probably the number one cause of interference to normal thyroid production is being on birth control for a long period of time. Yes, especially an estrogen-based birth control, which seems just like doctors just throw it at women having all kinds of issues when it comes to their menstrual cycle. When they're not, rather than try to figure out why it's happening, they're just throwing birth control at the problem and not actually testing it. But if you're on birth control a long period of time, because of how birth control, of how it works, and how it can actually start interfering with a lot of the thyroid binding globulin. You have to see that on a test. This can absolutely wreck and devastate the thyroid over time. So birth control can be one of the culprits. Another culprit can be chronic toxicity. And this is why if you look at fluoride, you look at bromine, these things can absolutely cause a lot of interference when it comes to the thyroid. And in fact, if you look at iodine, you look at fluorine, you look at bromine, all these are in the same chemical category on the on like the periodic table of elements. And so they're very chemically similar. And these things can compete with iodine because they're so chemically similar. And this would be fluoride, this would be bromine. And this is why I don't use fluorine or fluoridated toothpaste. I don't want fluoride in my drinking water. And you know what? Since I stopped using any kind of fluoride, my teeth are actually just fine. So I actually have less cavities, not more from that. But bromine can also interfere with this. And that's why if you look at brominated vegetable oils, there's a lot of vegetable oils that contain bromine. Citrus flavored drinks also can contain bromine as well. And that's why bromine is known as a bully of the halides, because it can interfere with that as well. And it just interferes with the ability of the thyroid to take in iodine, which is what is needed in order to produce adequate levels of thyroid hormone. And then you also can have, if you have high levels of stress, and it just depends on where the stress is actually coming from. High amounts of mental stress, high amounts of physical stress, high amounts of chemical stress, immune system stress. And yes, that will absolutely devastate thyroid function. That's why you can even see this on a thyroid, on a proper thyroid panel in which you're looking at reverse T3. I remember a woman came to me and she's like, "Doc, my thyroid is all messed up," and she was blaming all of her problems on her thyroid. All of her problems just didn't feel right, and she looked at her thyroid and looked at her thyroid, and it was a little bit off. And the doctor said that going on thyroid medication is going to solve all of her problems. And I said, you need to actually measure this correctly. So we did a proper thyroid test. Her reverse T3, which had never been tested, was off the charts. And I looked at this and I said, something is making you very, very sick. So I want your doctor to go and test some things a little bit further. Here's what I want them to test: this, and this. Went back and she ended up having cancer. So reverse T3 isn't necessarily something it can interfere, but here's what her body was doing. It was saying, I'm sick and I need to slow down thyroid production pretty significantly. And that's why even if you're looking at thyroid production, it can slow down if you're under eating. It can slow down if you're sick. All these things can make it slow down. But if we hadn't run that simple test of looking at reverse T3, we never would have known that she was very sick and that she had really bad cancer. She had lymphoma that was going on. And the stupid chiropractor is the one that actually found it. And it wasn't her medical doctor. Okay. So help with your thyroid. The biggest thing that I would tell you is that you need to get it tested properly. Here's a good place to start. Look at free and total T3, T4, reverse T3, TSH. Yep. There's value with looking at TSH. Look at antibody production, TPO, TGA antibodies, and then also look at cortisol too, because giving levothyroxine, and here's the thing. Are there some people need to be on levothyroxine? Yes. If you've had your thyroid removed, obviously you need to be on it. You don't have a thyroid gland anymore. But it wasn't very long ago, I started working with a woman and she was on levothyroxine or Synthroid for 20 years, and she recently was able to completely get off of that. Yes, even in the presence of thyroid autoimmunity, but one of the things that we did is we calmed that down, and she hadn't had enough thyroid destruction, and then her thyroid completely recovered, went back to normal. But it didn't happen overnight. She was able to get off of levothyroxine. She just looked at me and she said, I wish I would have known about this 20 years ago. And I said, well, you didn't, but the next best time in order to start correcting it is now. And she did. And now she is enjoying not needing to be on any kind of thyroid medication. Okay. All right. Here's the next question. How do I boost my immune system? How do I boost my immune system? The answer is you really can't. You can't boost your immune system. And I know all the time people try to boost their immune system. They want to take quercetin, they want to take vitamin D, and they want to take all of that. The thing is you can't boost the immune system. You can only get the immune system to get back to normal or to sufficiency. And guys, sufficiency is going to be enough. And that's why people say, how do I boost my hormones? How do I boost my metabolism? How do I boost my testosterone? I'm like, you can't boost it past normal physiological levels. You just can't. The whole idea is to get it within normal physiological levels. But one of the things that can really lower down the immune system response is if you don't figure out what's really stressing out the body. Okay. So here's what can really stress out the body is being in chronic fight or flight. This is a chronic stress response. And just think fight or flight. One of the biggest things we try to get people out of is get them out of fight or flight and put them into rest and digest. Because when you're in rest and digest, this is when your immune system can recover. You're going to digest your foods better. You're in calmness. You're in relaxation. Fight or flight is a needed response if a bear is chasing you. But the problem is we're running around all day as if a bear is chasing you. And there's a devastating effect that will happen to your immune system, to your hormone system, to your thyroid, to your gastrointestinal system if you leave that just running amok on your body for long periods of time. But the other question you have to ask is are you getting enough sleep? How much sleep are you getting? Women, you should be getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep every single night. Men, you should be getting 7 to 8 hours every single night. And then protein intake. So I've seen people so immunocompromised and they're just not eating enough protein. And just remember this, protein is one of the things that you need in order to build an immune system response. If you're not getting enough protein, you can't build something from nothing. So you do need enough protein. Are you running a chronic infection too? And in fact, some people who are running a chronic infection, mainly because they let their immune system get low. And in fact, it's not like they caught the infection. It's just this thing is just growing because it's always been there. The immune system can't keep it under control. But this is like chronic viral infections, Epstein-Barr virus. Yes, this can even be a chronic COVID infection too. People say, oh, I have long COVID. I'm like, yeah, you have long COVID because you can't clear out the virus. You're immunocompromised. The other thing too that can really slam your immune system is having elevated blood sugars for a long period of time. This is why if you even look during COVID, the people who are having the hardest time dealing with COVID are people who were type 2 diabetic. And that was one of the biggest things because if you have, chronically elevated blood sugars, you're pre-diabetic or you're type 2 diabetic, man, this will make you so immunocompromised, specifically like your neutrophils, because chronic elevated blood sugars just damage the neutrophils. And this is responsible for an innate immune system response. This is why this is so important. And then the other thing that can suppress the immune system for a long period of time is actually being in the presence of mold mycotoxicity. I have seen this too quite a bit. You can't figure out why this person's immunocompromised. Test for mold. Where the mycotoxins are being, where they're being propagated is going to be in your environment, usually indoor environment, usually in your house. And having chronic exposure to mold mycotoxicity will absolutely slam the immune system over time. Not only that, but also with kidney function, gallbladder function, and things like that. Okay. So you have to consider all of those different things. And this is why testing determines what you need in order to correct through your lifestyle. Yes, there are certain things that you can take that will help with immune system function, but I'm always trying to figure out what you can do in order to correct through your lifestyle so you don't just become a lazy supplement taker, okay? But here's some of the things you can do in order to improve your immune system function. Number one, get adjusted, okay? I can't stress that enough. Get adjusted. People think getting adjusted is only beneficial if you have pain. And I'm like saying, that's like you like deciding that you're going to stop smoking because you have lung cancer. It's like by the time that you start having pain or joint deterioration or something like that, you are way you are way late to the party. That's the problem. Is get adjusted as far as helping to relieve fight or flight. Because the biggest impact that a chiropractic adjustment properly delivered based off of x-rays will actually be on the function of the brain. You need to be sleeping 7 to 10 hours per night. And this is highly variable depending on how much exercise you're doing, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. Um, so a lot of that is can be different per person. But I will tell you this, I get consistently 8 to 9 hours of sleep per night. And the biggest thing is I realize I just have to. You need to make sure you're getting adequate protein. How much protein I need to be getting? I don't know. I know that for me, I need about 200 grams of protein per day. Remove the sources of what could be stressing out the immune system. And this is going to be different for every single person. And are there supplements that you can take? Yes, I would say yes, that there are. But you need to be on vitamin D. Astragalus is also something that helps with stem cell production. And the stem cells are kind of the precursor to some of your different types of lymphocytes that you make that mature within the thymus gland. Medicinal mushrooms can help too. Things like chaga, reishi, turkey tail, cordyceps, things like that. And the biggest thing that medicinal mushrooms do in order to help to improve the immune system is they just help to feed the thymus gland in order to allow some of these cells to be able to mature within the thymus gland in order to be able to mature into things like CD8 cells, CD4 cells, CD19 cells, natural killer cells, and things like that. Echinacea can also help too, but this is going to be highly variable depending on the person, what's been going on with person. This is why testing can be so important. Okay. All right. Next question. How do I improve my adrenal health? Which really you might be asking the question, do I have adrenal fatigue? Okay. My answer to that is probably not. You don't have adrenal fatigue. Your adrenal glands can function, but you probably have something known as adrenal down regulation. And so everybody wants to know, how do I get more energy? I'm low in cortisol. How do I get my cortisol levels up? Well, sometimes you need to be eating more. You definitely don't want to be dumping yourself with tons of sugar. But how do I improve my adrenal health? And I will tell you this, a lot of people come to me. It's probably the number one reason why people come to me is just for fatigue. They just, oh man, I'm just so tired. I don't have any fatigue. Well, or I don't have any energy and I'm just struggling with fatigue. And I will tell you this, one of the biggest things that's causing problems with fatigue is going to be chronic unrelenting inflammation. And it makes sense because I want you to think of it. If you've ever had the flu or if you ever had COVID, how did you feel? Did you feel tired? Did you feel fatigued? Did you want to run a 5K or did you want to lay in bed? And so anytime that your immune system is working on trying to fight a foreign invader, whether that's a virus, whether that's a bacteria, you're extremely toxic, or there's just a lot of food proteins that are leaking through that cause a lot of chronic unrelenting inflammation. Even mold mycotoxicity can cause issues. You're going to be very inflamed and your adrenal glands are going to respond. They're going to lower down cortisol and it's going to be converted into something known as cortisone, in which the immune system is trying to handle it. If you think about someone who's really, really inflamed, have you ever noticed doctors give cortisone because that will have a very anti-inflammatory effect. And you know what? Your body's already trying to do that too. So if you're talking about your adrenal glands, really start focusing on inflammation. The other thing too is that you do need adequate sleep. The other thing too is look at how much stress that you have, whether that's mental, chemical, whether that's physical. You also have to, and I'll actually probably mention this to someone once a week. Are you chronically undereating? In fact, I had a woman who came in today, looked at her adrenal function. I'm like, are you undereating? And she's like, yeah, well, I've been trying to lose weight. So I've really been undereating. And she didn't go on a GLP-1 agonist, but she had lost, 20 pounds over the course of about 2 months. But you could start to see her adrenal glands because she was chronically undereating. And this is why, if you want your energy to go up, stop undereating all the time. That doesn't mean that you are eating tons of sugar. but it just means that you make sure you do need an adequate calorie count, and you also need to be making sure that you're getting enough protein too. Are there some things that can help with adrenal function? The answer is yes, absolutely. Okay. This is why ashwagandha can help. This will be better for people who are having problems with their circadian rhythm. So if you would look at a Dutch test and you see their circadian rhythm is way off, ashwagandha can help to restore normal circadian rhythm. But sometimes people have really poor adrenal function, and it might be caused by some kind of chronic infection. It might be due to mold, whatever it might be. Sometimes adding in a stimulant like licorice root, yes, and it can actually help with viral inhibition and things like that, can help the adrenal glands to pick up a little bit, but not something that I would just throw at indiscriminately. You need to make sure that you are testing, especially. Okay. Which leads me to this. If you're from the Chicagoland area, you want to work with us directly, or you may be having some of those issues that I just talked about, get registered for our next inflammation event. That's Tuesday, June 10th at 6 o'clock p.m. All you have to do is if you click on our Linktree profile, you see it on the top of all the socials. That will open up. And then the first thing that you see at the very top is you will see the inflammation event that you can get registered for it. Click on that. Take you 60 seconds to register for the inflammation. It's free to attend. We have a special gift for you at the end, but this is how you register for that and start working with us directly. So make sure if you are just sick, you're struggling and you need help, get to the inflammation talk. That's where you start to work with us on a one-on-one basis. Okay. All right. So let me take just maybe one or two questions that people have asked. Hi, Cheryl. So good to see you from Campbell River, British Columbia. Eileen from Connecticut. It's good to see you. Flash, it's also good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while from Mississippi. Hope you're doing well. And then Flash asked this question. Dr. Thompson, is there a specific test for T3, T4, reverse T2, reverse T3, TSH, TPO antibodies, and cortisol? Yes, there is. And in fact, if you go to the Wellness Way website and then you go to the store, I think there's labs. This is something that they can actually send to you as a kit. You go get the blood draw, or a Wellness Way doctor can order this test for you. If you're from Mississippi, they can order the blood draw and you can get this done at a LabCorp or something like that. And then the Wellness Way doctor working with you can get the results and be able to go over that with you specifically. So yes, there is a specific test. Yeah, and when we look at our labs are very going to be very different than what your medical doctor is going to run. And a lot of times people will say, why didn't my medical doctor run these? And I'm like, the reason why is because they're only checking, their only concern they have when it comes to the thyroid, for example, is to give you some kind of hormone replacement. That's really the only tool that they have in their toolbox. So it's just like, if the only thing that you have is a hammer, then everything starts to look like a nail. So this is why you have to start trying to figure out why the thyroid may not be working the way that it's supposed to. Now, here's where I want to caution you, because a lot of you guys you want to get the test, but then you get the test and guys, you have no idea what to do with it. So it's just, it's like, well, how do I get a stool test? I'm like, you can go ahead and get it, but do you know what you need to do with it? So I always tell people, testing is important, yes, but you need to make sure that you're working with someone who knows how to interpret it correctly. And this is the same thing with like a Dutch test, a dried urine total comprehensive hormone test. Otherwise, you will look at this, you will spend 19 hours in a rabbit hole, and you just will be like, I don't even know where to start with this. Or you'll just start dumping a bunch of supplements in and not really try to handle the biggest reason why some of these things are actually happening. So thank you, Flash, for that question. That's a very, very good question. So, any other questions that people have right now? Let me go ahead and hide this off of that. And if we have any other questions, I'll see if I can answer maybe one or two questions. And again, thank you guys so much for joining us for this live broadcast. I appreciate you guys being on this. And please make sure too, because just so you know, just as an FYI, Facebook is actually going to be getting rid of live broadcasts after, I don't know if it's 30 days or 90 days, just because I think they're running out a lot of storage. I don't think they've been building their data centers to be able to store these things. So Facebook is getting rid of this. So you can always go to our YouTube page. If you go to our YouTube page, these stay kind of forever. So if you go onto our lives, you'll be able to find all of our live broadcasts. And make sure, guys, that you share this with other people. Because I know if this is getting, these questions are getting, coming through with me from patients or from social media, then I know that there are thousands of people that are asking the same questions. So send these to those people. And just remember this, when you send that to another person, you may be the only voice they ever hear for them to be able to get the proper help. So this is why, I always say, please make sure that you are sharing with other people. And if you don't follow our page, please make sure that you are following our page so you stay up to date on all of our live broadcasts as well. So, Gene, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you joining us live. Wow, we have a lot of people that are on live. And it's okay if you join late, Deanne. That's okay. Just make sure you go ahead and watch this full video as well. You can watch it here on this platform on Facebook, but also if you go to lives, you'll be able to find it on YouTube under our live broadcast. We have literally hundreds and hundreds of them over the last 3 to 4 years, so you'll be able to watch all those lives too. Okay, so Flash. It's okay if you said T2. I don't know. We all make mistakes. That's all right. But yes, it's reverse T3. Okay. So, yep. And so just make sure if you have any issues going on, please make sure that you're working with the Wellness Way doctor. And they can direct you as far as getting the right testing going on. Okay. So, guys, if that's all, I appreciate you joining this live broadcast. I appreciate all of you. I will be live most probably next week too. If you have any ideas regarding topics, please let me know. But I'll be going live next week as well. And we'll see what live topic I can come up with. We'll see. So, guys, I appreciate you joining on this live broadcast. Thank you guys so much. I love and appreciate all of you. I will see you next week. Make sure you follow our page. We'll be putting out a lot of great content, and I appreciate all of you. Biggest thing I tell you is I love that you listen, but the most important thing is that I want you to be able to do, because I want you to be in good health and I want you to thrive. I want you to prosper. And that starts most importantly by listening, and then most importantly by doing. So, guys, be well, be blessed. Remember who you are. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys next week. All right. Be well.